So all children are unique and different, aren't they? If you've had more than one child, you know that as you began to raise your children, each of them appeared to be different. They showed up different. They learned differently. And as they grew, it was just interesting how we find that the differences that they exhibited began almost at birth and continued on through their childhood. So the question is that as a parent, how do we help raise emotionally intelligent children? So today we're going to talk about how we do that, how we understand our children through a tool we call the Four Lenses. And as we understand each of the lenses, and then we understand how that plays out in our children's lives, we can know how to be better parents and help them to grow and progress in what we refer to as becoming more emotionally intelligent, even as children. I have 7 children. Imagine if I was able to have and knew this information some 30 some odd years ago and had and worked to develop emotionally intelligent children. What would that be like? Imagine the conflicts. We would have less conflicts. We'd have less issues on communication. We'd have greater collaboration as a home and as a family. And so that was really the motivation that drove me to understand more about this emotional intelligence and how I can become more emotionally intelligent and then help my children. But there was a starting point. I had to begin to understand, first off, where does this begin? And at the simplest form, I found the beginning point is this idea called temperament. That if I can first understand my temperament and the temperament of my children, I can begin to understand how the dynamics of communication, how the dynamics of stress and conflict could potentially arise, and begin to develop countermeasures to be able to help me to be more effective as a parent and them to be more effective as children. So let's get into let's just dive in to these temperaments. And as I introduce you to each of these temperaments, I'm going to read to you just a small paragraph about each child, what a blue child looks like, what an orange child, what a green child, and what a gold child would look like. And then as we talk about each of those different temperaments, we're going to talk about them in unique ways as to what are things that are important to them. Because if I'm to help them to grow and progress, then I need to model that behavior, and we can actually learn to grow together. As I'm trying to grow and they can try to grow, we can grow together. And that becomes a great, great success in helping us to become closer in our families and in our relationships. First, let me introduce you to the blue child. Listen as I give you these different definitions. Begin to think about your children and begin to initially just say, I wonder if my child would fit that, or if it fits one of these other temperaments. So the blue child, blues are imaginative children who spend a lot of time coloring, writing, play acting, daydreaming. They love it when older people take time to tell them stories, nursery rhymes, and fairy tales. They like playing with toys that have personality. They like dolls and animals. Because they're naturally gentle and sensitive, they're easily upset when other people become overly competitive, aggressive, or violent. So that really gives us the basics of the blue child and where they're coming from. Really, if you kind of put it in a way, they're a child that loves harmony, they love calmness, and they just enjoy being part of whatever's happening. Gold children, they have reasonably easy time growing up. They're well-mannered children who can be counted on to do their chores and follow the rules. They look to their parents and teachers for direction and approval. They're down to earth. They become upset over change. They like to play with toys. They make them appear to be more grown up and important. They like to work on crafts that are useful and practical. Most parents love gold children because they do exactly what you ask them to do, and they do it well. So think about that in terms of how does your personality, are you a gold? Do you have a gold preference? And do you have gold children? And how do you interact with them? Okay, the green child. Greens are independent children who appear to be older than their years. They're normally early talkers and learn to read long before they start school. They ask a lot of questions. They're never quite satisfied with an answer unless they can experience it for themselves. They like to play with chemistry sets, plastic models, magnets, magnifying glasses, puzzles, and construction sets. Kind of frustrating to parents because they're always asking questions, right? And some parents don't like to be asked questions. Are you one of those? Do you have a green child? And are you understanding them on where they're at? So the last child, or my favorite, I guess, would be the orange child. And orange children are noisy, they're energetic, they're freedom-loving because they want life to be action-packed and fun. They do what they want, when they want, so it seems like they're always getting into trouble. They like physical contests and games, especially if they can be played outside. Their bedrooms are usually messy and cluttered with toys, clothes, and sports equipment. That's the orange child. Drives a lot of parents crazy, right? Think about it. So now we have these 4 types of children. We have the blue child, we have the green child, we have the orange child, and we have the gold child. Each of them have unique characteristics that then you need to be aware of to be able to help you to understand how do you parent those children. Let me give you a story about one of my green children and one of the struggles he had. As he went into school, he really struggled with teachers. In fact, he would come home on very often and say, "My teacher's such an idiot. I had to teach the math class today because she couldn't communicate the way that it needed to be done." One day he came up to school and he had an F on his math assignment because his teacher was an idiot. And I said, "Well, why did you get an F in this class?" He says, "Because, Dad, I did all the work the way that I do the work. I had all the answers, and the answers were all right. I actually got 100 on the test." I'm like, "Well, why did you fail it, son?" He says, "Because the teacher said I didn't show the work the way she wanted me to show the work." So what we're dealing with here is a very gold teacher that had a way that her class should be run, had a very green child who was willing to take an F on a test rather than conform to what the teacher wanted. Those same things happen in our families. We have our children that are acting, behaving certain ways, green, gold, orange, or blue. And as parents, we kind of see the world in a one-dimensional through our lens. One of my favorite statements is, all of us think we see the world as it is, but when in reality, we just see it as we are. So as we're trying to work with our children, the question is, are you trying to convince them that the only way they're going to be happy and successful is to be like you? Or have you taken the time to really understand who they are and are working to build them and help them with their strengths and make it through life in a very successful way? We call that emotional intelligence, the ability that I understand and that you can understand, and we together can talk through this. So the conversation I had with my son, I said, "Well, son, you have 1 of 2 choices. You can choose to be low mature, like you've expressed, just take the F and say it's the teacher's fault. Or a more high mature approach would be, is that because this could impact your ability down the road to go to college, couldn't it?" He's like, "Well, yeah, it could." Well, you're going to let a teacher make that determination? So then you can choose to then go ahead, follow what the teacher needs you to do. That'd be a mature behavior. Even though you think it's stupid, but it's going to be what you need to do so that you can be successful in your life. Wouldn't that be a better approach? And he thought about it and he says, "Okay, I can do that." Because that helped him to understand what he needed to do. So as we look at these 4 temperaments, you look at your children, we want you to be able to say, how can I help this child be most successful? The way to do that is to be able to understand what their temperament is. So to help you on your journey, we'd like you to click below and take your free 4 lenses assessment and begin your journey on understanding temperament, and then use that knowledge and have discussions with your children to begin to understand their temperaments. And as you do that, you can help us on our journey of putting the human back into humanity.